Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another PFL fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the full card of fights for PFL Washington DC Gene versus Musaev. So, without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the card. We scroll on down. First fight we have in the featherweight division, we got Noah Hermosillo versus Jacob Pais. And how do I feel about this one right here is I'll go low comp to Noah Hermosillo to beat Jacob Pais. And what stand out most for me in this fight right here is Hermosillo's D2 wrestling background. He's like a D2 two-time champion. So that stands out to me. Jacob Pais seems pretty standout. I don't see nothing special about him. If anything, I've seen pretty underwhelming. Obviously, he could build on. He has an extensive amateur career. He's going to build and could be something. For what I'm saying, I seen his last fight in 2025, and or not his last fight, but a fight from 2025, which is, again, that 2025 wasn't that long ago. It's 2026. I think he had maybe one fight or two after that. But that's not enough time to really make no leaping skills. When I saw in that 2025 fight, I was not impressed at all. I see a guy that's not ready. Hermosillo, I was more impressed with his skill set. Obviously, his wrestling skills are high level wrestling skills to be a two-time D2 champion. There's much higher upside on him. I think Hermosillo will be more athletic, more talented, be able to mix up the fight. I'm going to say decision. I think Pais' extensive experience amateur will be able to keep himself in the fight. And he does have a bit of grappling, but I think Hermosillo will be able to outstrike him, will land the heavier shots, mixing the takedowns, and keep Pais, worried about the wrestling, whether he's getting the takedowns or using takedowns set up strikes, and then just be ahead of Hermosillo. Be ahead of Pais at pretty much every step of this fight. I think he beats him by decision. So in this one, I got Noah Hermosillo via decision. Now, the next fight we have in the light heavyweight division, we got Chad Yard versus Cody Bradford. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'll go average confidence Chad Yard to beat Cody Bradford. I think Chad Yard is a solid talent. The age is kind of questionable. Like 30, turning pro at 30 is not ideal, but the guy has a wealth of experience behind that. So he's definitely leveled up to be here and had extensive experience in the cage, outside the cage, kickboxing, BJJ. So the guy's a full well-rounded package. It might have been a late start to turn pro, but I think he did. As far as what he did, I think he took the right steps for himself. And going against Cody Bradford, I think Bradford's a solid fighter, but I think Chad Yard is a sharper striker, sharper grappler. But the biggest issue here is that Bradford does have that pro experience. It might not be all wins or all pretty, but you gotta respect guys like Bradford, who had that experience. That experience is something. Whether winning or losing, his pro experience is unmatched, and he does have. Compared to Yard, he has with like 9 pro fights to Chad Yard 0. But yeah, I think Chad Yard will be a sharper striker. It's just a matter of, getting those cobwebs off and getting your feet wet at a pro level. And that might be a little bit issue, but I think Chad Yard will settle into the fight. Be a little bit tentative, settle into the fight, start to break down Bradford. And I'll look at like a late second round TK. I think it'll be a building process for Chad Yard. This being his first pro fight, and Cody, this being his first pro fight. And Cody Bradford, being a guy that does have talent and skill, he's not just a scrub that's mediated to lay down. He does have power. He is talented. He may not be no real high level fighter by any means, and probably never will be. But he's definitely a threat. Like he's not a pillow puncher. He got heavy hands. He's not a little weak guy. He's gonna be something there pushing back at you. You gotta worry about what's coming back at you. He could knock you out. He does have power. He's not gonna just be easy to throw around. He's physically strong. He's like a strong guy, so you got to break him down a little bit. But I think Chad Yard, again, he might be new to MMA. As far as a pro, this is his first pro fight, but this is not his first fight by any means. This is not his first time competing by any means. He'll be more than ready for the test. Again, be able to thaw out Bradford and put him away. I'll say late second round TKO for Chad Yard. So in this one, I got Chad Yard via second round TKO. Now, to our next fight we have in the welterweight division, we got Ernesto Rodriguez versus McKenzie. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'll go average confidence Ernesto Rodriguez to beat McKenzie, and I just think Rodriguez is the better overall talent. I don't really see where McKenzie beats him. Maybe he's more tough and gritty, but I don't think he has skill and talent to where the tough and grittiness will be that big a factor. I think Rodriguez breaks him down. I'm gonna say third round TKO for Ernesto Rodriguez. So. In this one, I got Ernesto Rodriguez via third round TKO. Now, to our next fight we have in the bantamweight division, we got Ndebele versus Brandon Davis. And how do I feel about this one right here? I'll go average confidence Ndebele to beat Brandon Davis. And yeah, Brandon Davis is washed. I ain't gonna say too much about definitely like a decent talent. Brandon Davis is definitely beyond his best years. Not like his best years were even that great. He was like a low tier journeyman UFC level fighter, and now he's like got this making it by outside of UFC. And definitely like a talent that could build and try to potentially one day fight in UFC. You know, he's a talent that can potentially go somewhere with Brandon Davis. Like his ship has more than sailed. His experience could cause issues, but other than that, Ndebele should be able to run over Brandon Davis. I'll say a second round TKO for Ndebele. So in this one, I got Ndebele via second round TKO. Now for the next fight, we have in the bantamweight division, we got Michael Sear versus Bryce Meredith. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'll go average confidence Bryce Meredith to beat Michael Sear. So yeah, I think pretty clear, straightforward path. I think Bryce Meredith is just on a whole different talent level, and I don't really see the area where Michael Sear causes really any issue for Bryce Meredith. Or yeah, I don't really see a clear path. I think Bryce Meredith should be able to outstrike him, outgrapple. I think he's a better talent, better skills, better athlete, better fighter. But Michael Sear will be tough, and I think he'll be able to make a decision. But I think Bryce Meredith will be outstrike him, be able to outgrapple, and really just do what he wants to in this fight. Obviously, you don't want to go out and just try to do too much and be too flashy. That's how you end up getting mistakes. But, you know, fight your fight. Mixing the strike. Use that high-level wrestling. Smother him. Chain wrestle him. And beat him by decision. Like, a stoppage could be in there. But as far as I'm saying, I see a decision for Bryce Meredith. So, in this one, I got Bryce Meredith via decision. Now, for the next fight we have in the welterweight division, we got Eliezer Kubanza versus Chris Mixan. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'll go low confidence Eliezer Kubanza to beat Chris Mixan. And yeah, Chris Mixan low-key is live in this fight. Low-key. It's not like Kubanza is such a consistent stud or whatever. We did get TKO'd on a contender series, so it's like he's this guy, this guy's this beast, he's the welterweight Ngannou or this and that. Nah, he's not. Maybe he'll evolve into that, maybe. Maybe not. Most likely not. But he definitely got offensive talent, but defensively, IQ, cardio, durability, it's like some stuff he got to work on. He's definitely the better talent. Like, he definitely has a much higher ceiling than Mixan. Mixan's ceiling is realistically very low. But it's this fight he could win. Because, again, we've seen Kubanza get TKO. Mixan does have this fight where he's hot one day, he's cold one day, and he could potentially catch Kubanza and put him out. But Kubanza could put Mixan out on any day. A good day, bad day, but Mixan on his good days, he is live for the upset. But I go Eliezer Kubanza here. I was like, Mixan is too inconsistent. Like, he could beat a somewhat decent guy, and he could lose to mediocre guys. I don't like that inconsistency in him. Kubanza has one loss, and I think he'll have learned from that loss. And I already think he was a good solid fighter. Already had good structure, to fight at the UFC level. Like, sometimes you'll drop one, but I feel like he's one of the guys, if he won a contender series again, he'd probably win, have a spectacular performance, and then go on the UFC and go on a streak. Again, whether it goes on a relevant streak and like really break into top 15, top 10, or whether it just beat up a couple guys outside the top 15 and then choke once he gets into a top 15 fight. I think this guy could thrive in the UFC, where I feel like Mixan is a guy that be brought in on short notice, go 0-3 in the UFC, or maybe 1-3 in the UFC and get cut. The talent level is clearly like very different. But yeah. And it's not like Mixan is some great wrestler. If anything, his wrestling defense could be one of his biggest weak areas. But ultimately, yeah, Kubanza has a better ceiling. Kubanza only has one loss, I think. Mixan has several. So you can say inconsistency on his side and this and that, but Mixan is even more inconsistent, has even more setbacks. It's even more questionable competition. And yeah, I think Eliezer Kubanza will pick his shots better, the better talent, has the harder shots, and will continue to show his growth from the contender series fight and improve. And I think he has another great performance here, and I think he puts Mixan away late first round TKO. So in this one, I got Eliezer Kubanza via first round TKO. Now to the next fight we have in the light heavyweight division, we got Sullivan Cauley versus Rasul Magomedov. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'll go low confidence Rasul Magomedov to beat Sullivan Cauley. And yeah, I gotta give Sullivan Cauley his respect. No, he's a big light heavyweight. He does have a solid wrestling background. He does have power that you gotta respect. But yeah, and he's definitely live here against Rasul Magomedov. But I go Rasul Magomedov. He's not fighting a 40-year-old Phil Davis. He's fighting a prime Rasul Magomedov. Even though prime Rasul Magomedov really ain't got nothing on the prime Phil Davis. He didn't fight a prime Phil Davis. But anyway, I'm just had to throw that in there. But Rasul Magomedov, you fight a guy that's in his prime. Not to say he's such a phenomenal fighter by any means just yet. Maybe in the future it will. But as far right now, that's a very relevant thing. He's a prime fighter, or a guy that's around his best and still getting better, and not a guy that's on his way out. And as far as the fight, I feel like Cauley is a guy that has moments. Like he has these moments where he chokes. He has moments where he's looking great, looking like a problem. And but yeah, as far as these two, I feel like Rasul Magomedov is the better wrestler of the two. And I feel like he's the more consistent striker of the two. Who does have the bigger peaks? Who can have the bigger peaks is Cauley. Like at his peak, his power can make a strike look a lot better or a lot more effective than it is. Or yeah, as far as his skill versus effectiveness at that time, like the power and athleticism can make his striking, be better, make his wrestling be better. But I feel like overall tempo, I feel like Rasul Magomedov's skills overall are more standard. I don't like these fighters that their striking looks real good, or that they're landing heavy and having success at moments, but a lot of times because the skill's not there, they can't replicate that or adjust that, or again, that's why the inconsistencies present themselves, because they haven't really polished their skills out all that well. Like, yes, he has a great athlete, great frame, he's big for the weight class, but his striking is not all that technical. So he can have moments like when that big power is touching you, it's going to have effect for sure. But when he's not able to set his shots up because the technique is not fully there, again, that's why it's dips. It's dips. Whereas Rasul Magomedov, his technique is cleaner in both the striking and the grappling, especially when you add it into MMA. Not maybe pure wrestling, Cauley probably beats Magomedov, maybe in pure wrestling. But when you add MMA, where he's got to be set up with the strikes and distance and the ranging, I said the ranging, well, I'm adding aim to everything. The distance, the range, and all that stuff. It's a different game. As we have seen, like we've seen guys their wrestling look different when they do RAF versus when you see it in MMA. And you see people striking look different when it's this versus that. But nonetheless, I think Rasul Magomedov is the better overall package, the more consistent fighter of the two, and riding the streak. And I think he'll be able to mix the shots up better, control the tempo of this fight, and be able to beat Sullivan Cauley via decision. So in this one, I got Rasul Magomedov via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in our co-main event in the light heavyweight division, we got Tyson Pedro versus Rafael Xavier. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'll go low confidence Rafael Xavier to beat Tyson Pedro. And Pedro's an amazing talent, but how long can you keep saying it? Like he obviously, reached his potential as far as the UFC. Got cut. And as far as I feel about him as a fighter, I feel like he never really been fully locked in as much as he should have been. And I feel like he probably just went to PFL, similar to what Kevin Lee did when he came to PFL, for who gonna give him the biggest check. And I feel like what a lot of fighters do. It's not about making the smartest move. Like it's probably the smartest move for Pedro to do. Probably go down and I'm be honest. Like a lot of people don't like to be honest about nothing. They're like, I'm in the best shape of my life, even though they know they got bad hips or they got two blown out knees, or I trained the hardest of my life. They've been eating Krispy Kremes every day and they only train like once a week. People always gonna lie. But the smart thing for a fighter, I feel like Pedro should have did, at several points in his career, maybe even earlier, take a step back, build your way up, take some tune-up fights, take some cans, some fights like, how people do it at the beginning of their career, fight, easy fight, easy fight, easy fight. They maybe one or two decent challenging fights, then step up. We started to suffer, take some tune-up fights. That's what they do in boxing. Don't shame boxing for taking tune-up fights. That's how they stay making millions and millions of dollars. They don't keep taking hard fights, because then you lose your value. And lose your motivation, like, I don't have it no more. Because you keep fighting good guys. You need to take a step back, fight some scrubs. Be honest, fight some scrubs. Or some guys that are easier wins for you. Maybe not flat out scrubs, like some easier wins for you stylistically. Take smart fights. Build up, build your name. Take a little bit less money, but fights that's going to win. Because it's better at the end of the day to win and keep taking these fights where you're getting whooped on and you got to spend like half your check on getting yourself back in health and whatever. Versus some easy fights you can fight for half the money, but easy fights, you make a fight 4 or 5 of those a year, versus one of these where you're getting whooped on or knocked out and you're not giving your best self and stuff. You just come back looking for that one fight that's going to give you the most money, but going to cause you stress and it's ultimately most likely not going to be the way you wanted to go. But yeah. But it is what it is. Do what you want to do with your life. Keep making these mistakes, my guy. But yeah, Pedro, he's definitely the better overall fight. I'm not going to say overall, but he's definitely the more well-rounded guy here. But it's never like he had the best offensive wrestling. He never really had the best offensive wrestling. He's clearly just like some of his friends and training partners, former, past, present, where you can see the clear lack of fire, motivation. And I feel like he just coming here for the check. And Xavier, his record's ugly, but you can still see the hunger and fire in him. And he's done pretty well against some of the better competition in this weight class right now, active. He's really been doing, so you can see the hunger with Pedro. Like when he's fought relevant competition recently, he's been looking flat and unmotivated. And I think Xavier will be able to address the grappling, will keep it on the feet. And I think he'll be able to find the chin of Pedro, and I think he stops Pedro late in the second round. I think Pedro can get off a good little start, but I think Xavier just has more fire, and he's going to be battling throughout, where I feel like Pedro can have flashes, but I think the moment start getting tough, a guy that don't really want to be there or halfway there, 1 foot out, maybe just pursuing the biggest check he can get instead of like really fighting with any type of mindset and not with a real hunger. It's going to get tough, they're going to check out. I think Xavier just going to find that chin. Pedro might get a good start, but eventually Xavier going to have that dog in him, be able to push and keep digging, and Pedro ain't going to have that, and Xavier is going to have that. And he's going to be able to find him, break him down, stop him late in the second round. So in this one, I have Rafael Xavier via second round TKO. Now to our main event, we have in the welterweight division for the PFL vacant welterweight championship between Thad Jean versus Shamil Musaev. And how do I feel about this one right here? Is I'll go low confidence Thad Jean to beat Shamil Musaev. It's really momentum. Jean's on a hot streak. I think he's undefeated, I believe. Yep, undefeated versus Shamil Musaev, who has had his first official loss in his last fight. So Thad Jean's riding a hot streak, and I think he will have learned from his last fight. Obviously, they both fought a similar opponent. Musaev ran through him. Jean had struggles and was able to put him away, had to go the 4 or 5 rounds. But sometimes it's a good thing to go 4 or 5 rounds. Like you face the adversity, you deal with what you deal with, and that could be a good thing. Like they both had to go 5 rounds last fight. Shamil Musaev lost. Jean won. So that's a good. Or was it a 3-round fight? Was it 3 or 5? I forget. Either way, they both had to go the distance last fight. Jean's undefeated, and it's not like win or lose, you could go back to the drawing board and say, this is what I need to work on to do this. Now, I don't feel like Shamil Musaev, people like to suck Shamil Musaev off, like he's going to be this and that. Like, I think come to UFC, I think he'd be like a middleweight. Jean, potentially, I think he could be a UFC champion. I don't think Musaev is anything particularly special. I feel like striking is very aggressive and sloppy. It's effective what he does because he's a threat of takedown. But as far as you're not really worried about his takedown, I feel like his striking is really very sloppy. And also, we saw how kicks affect him as well. And Jean will be the bigger, stronger fighter here. I think he'll be the mixing the kicks, mixing the shots. And I think he'll come in with his wrestling definitely patched up. And if you look to land no shots on Musaev, I don't think Musaev will have ever been hit with power that Jean is going to be able to put on him. And I think Jean puts him away in the second round. I think Jean's going to have a miraculous performance here. Again, I'm not going to high confidence. Like you're saying all this stuff, but your confidence ain't high. But hey, it is what it is. Low confidence. Shamil Musaev is definitely live in this fight. He definitely can win. He can definitely look spectacular. But I think that Jean is the one that's going to look spectacular here. Be able to dress the wrestling, have a career performance. And it's going to be him probably looking for a UFC shot, whether it be this year or next year. But yeah, I think that Jean's able to dress the wrestling for the most part. Working the kicks. And then off the kicks, be able to set up his hands. And be able to find the shots. Break Musaev down. And I think he stops Shamil Musaev late in the second round via TKO. So in this one, I got Thad Jean via second round TKO. And so that concludes my fight predictions for the full card of fights for PFL Washington, D.C. Jean versus Musaev. And as always, thanks for watching. Peace.